Welcome to the Business Reboot Toolkit, a mini series to give dental practice owners tools and tips on how to help their team members succeed in this current climate. So joining us today is our guest speaker, Negar Riazati, and she's the CEO of Performia Australia. She also serves the China and other Asian regions. Negar first began her professional career at the age of 19 when she was in her final year of university. And then during that time, she was working for Performia in a recruitment admin role. Due to her success in this role, 4 months into her position, she was promoted into production manager. She continued to study full-time as well as working full-time at Performia until she graduated. And eventually she went on to break lots and lots of records within her own company, which basically has 23 different international countries that it runs in, and went on to basically become the CEO of Australia in Performia. So she is a living story of what it means to be a performer in a workplace. And right now she is running the company in Australia to help their clients with finding more people like herself, where they can find people that perform really well within their employment. So welcome to the show, Negar.
Thanks, Becky. Thanks for having me.
It's great to have you. I'm actually really excited about this particular episode. As you know, we've been working together now for about, I think it's probably just over 18 months. And I have to say, ever since I found Performia, it's almost like a little hidden gem. And it's been really good just because, you've really sort of changed the way I think about how we do our recruitment and all sorts of things. So I'd love to sort of, I suppose, give you a couple of minutes for you to share with the rest of the audience what you do and, what do you love about working with Performia, and what do you guys do with clients in particular?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And look, it has been so nice to work with you, Becky. And, you're a professional as well, I think, in your space, which I think is also why this works so well with us, because you do apply everything, So, but look, so about Performia, look, basically, Performia, as you said, is a global company, and what we do is we basically make it much more easier for companies to hire the right people and build really successful teams. And we do that through training and some tools that we provide companies so they know exactly the steps for how to attract, select, and build really great teams. And I've been a Performia, like you said, since 19 for over 12 years now, and it's been a great journey. And the thing that drives me every day is seeing the transitions our clients go through, sometimes transformations of seeing, how their team used to be and how it changed. So now it's like, less gray hairs for the bosses, and just more productivity, a more motivated group. And also what I love seeing is that confidence that goes back to the owner. It's like before they were like more hesitant, more careful about their growth and how they do things. And then now that they know they can do this, they can hire the right people and be very good at it, it's like they're more confident to get out there and do it. And this is what I love the most about what we do.
That's great, isn't it? I think it's definitely true. I think a lot of times we all think that we have really good systems in place to hire the right people and get people on board. And what's been really interesting, even for myself, when I, ever since working with yourself, is I suppose seeing the higher predictability in terms of what type of people are coming through. And there isn't as much of that, like, oh, is this person really going to work out or not? You really do have a lot more confidence when you end up nutting down on that one person. We're just like, yep, this person's going to come on board and they're going to be fantastic, and you just have full faith that it's going to work.
Yeah. And look, it's not everything is super black and white, and we're dealing in an area that's people. And if it was a printer or maybe a dental equipment, it might be even more predictable than people, because people are quite complex. But the more you know about a person, how they operate, and also through the knowing more about how they've achieved results in the past, that does give you a lot more prediction and allows you to mitigate a lot of the problems that do come up. And it's interesting, before you said it's like a hidden gem that you found. Quite often our clients actually tell us that we're like the missing link in the business, because if you look at it, if you've got a great company, you've got a great product, and you know how to sell that product, the next thing is people, and knowing how to hire people, the right people at the right pace, put them in the right seats, and how to develop them. So if you've got that, that's the missing link. If you've got that, then you've got the full formula for being able to, keep repeating it and keep growing, if that's what you want to do, or just keep a stable and a stable team that's working well together.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So can you just tell me, obviously we've got this, today we're going to talk about, I suppose the focus mainly is how do we hire performers within our own practice and things like within our own business. Can you just tell everyone right now, like, is this actually a good time to be hiring? Because a lot of people are like, look, the COVID-19 just happened, the budget's probably not that high at the moment. We're struggling to, for some people, it's great, they put everyone back on full time. But for others, there have been a lot of practice owners who have reduced the hours of their current employees. And whether they might be struggling to find extra budget to then bring on new people on board, even if they think that right now, they really need to eventually get someone on board. So what sort of trends are you seeing, I suppose, with your current, clients in this current climate?
Yeah, sure. And look, we get this question a lot, and look, it's different for different companies, and we have to look at a few things. But in the last 2 months, a lot has changed on the candidate market, and we've noticed some massive shifts. So because we help a lot of clients with their hiring, so we post a lot of job ads, so we see the trends like firsthand. And basically, in the last 2 months, because companies have been letting people go because of obvious reasons, or they've cut people's hours back, what that's actually meant is that there's more than usual amazing people on the market, or has been in the last 2 months. And these are people that normally wouldn't be applying for jobs. These are the people that are so productive, so fantastic, that they normally wouldn't be applying, because their company would never dream of wanting to let them go or create any excuse for them to go. But because they've cut their hours back, these people are actually looking for work now, because it's like, look, I can't handle that, that cut in hours. The other reason why companies have been letting people go is the people who haven't been doing so well, haven't been so productive or effective for the company. It's like, now it's been a good opportunity for companies to let those people go as well. So there's also an unusual amount of not so good people on the market right now. So you have these amazing diamonds, fantastic people on the market, which normally you would never get. Well, you also have quite the opposite too, because companies, sometimes they hold on to people for far longer than they should. But now it's like, okay, let's cleanse the team a bit, and they've done that. So you got these two situations. But to answer your question about is it a good time to hire, it does come down to, do they need to hire people? Of course. But yeah, so one thing is we do recommend minimally putting a plan in place, because there's a lot of people on the market right now, and especially in an industry where you might not normally get a lot of qualified people, depending on the job, or you might, not get a lot of amazing people that, you might think for your region, or might be regional, or whatever it might be. So it's like, yes, you should absolutely work out a plan to also put job ads out, because there's people looking now, there's people on the market looking now. And it doesn't even mean you have to put the person on right now. It's like, there's different strategies, there's different ways to do it, so you don't miss out on those people. And so yeah, absolutely. It's like, depends on the industry. If I'm an airline, it's like I might hold off a little bit, but it's like, for most other industries, we absolutely recommend it. We've been actually saying it in the last 2 months, we've been telling our clients to just keep hiring, keep advertising. And I've actually got some clients who have been doing that and taking that advice. And I have one client whose revenue was significantly impacted. His revenue was impacted, but he saw this opportunity So he actually ramped up his hiring when everybody was cutting back. Because see, that's the other thing that happened. Everyone's like, oh, no, we better slow down. We better take it easy a bit, we better not. So then if you take the opposite action, you're going to get the most attention, So it's the same actually as marketing and sales. It's like when everyone is cutting back on their marketing and not promoting, that's the cheapest way to market. It's like put one ad out and everybody will see it because no one else is doing it.
That's so true.
So it's like now is actually still the time to keep communicating. And one way of communication is promotion and letting people know about the opportunities that do exist, because those good people are still on the market. While things are changing every day and the market is not like it was maybe 2 months ago, a lot of those good people have been snapped up already. But there's also a lot of people that are on the market still. So, yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely start.
So, Negar, can you sort of share with us why Performia is so big on hiring on production? This, to be perfectly honest, when I first came to Performia and started working with you guys, that was a really big eye opener for me, because everyone has been saying things like hire on attitude. That is a really, really big message that all the you talk to any dental practice owners, they'll always say to you, look, always hire on attitude. Why is it important to hire on production?
Yeah, it's a really good question. And look, attitude is absolutely important. You need people with the right attitude for sure. And well, look, to answer the question, there's a lot of things that you want to cover off in your hiring. And we typically categorize all these things into 4 factors. We call them the 4 factors of hiring. And these we call performance, personality, motivation, and knowledge. Yeah. And attitude probably comes under quite a bit of motivation and probably somewhat personality as well. Now, if you look at the typical hiring process, you advertise for a job, you start looking at the candidate's resume, experience, qualifications, do they have the right background? If that ticks well, the next thing you want to check is probably attitude. Do they have the right, cultural fit for a company? So you meet them, see how you feel with them. And then if that's good, it's like some companies, not everybody, some companies will do some other testing or including psychometric or personality or behavioral testing. And usually at that point, if they feel like it's a good match, they'll hire the person and put them on the job and hope that this person now performs and does well. And sometimes companies don't even do reference checks. So they normally just put the person on the job. Now, the challenge with this situation is that when you put this person on the job, you actually don't know if they'll perform. So you're kind of using your company as a bit of a testing ground to see how the person will actually perform on the job. And sometimes it can be 3 months, 6 months, or longer to actually find this out. Sometimes people can stay with companies for years before you go, you know what, maybe they're not adding the value I thought they would add, or they create more problems than they're really worth. And this is the performance measure. So what we do at Performia, it's like we change this strategy 180 degrees. So what we check first is performance. And by performance, it's like we're looking at, has this person been able to add value in the past? Because if someone has been able to add value in the past, and it doesn't matter how old or young they are, it's not age relevant. If someone has been able to add value in the past, it's a very good prediction of how much value they can add in the future. And look, of course, if there's some qualifications that are needed by law, otherwise it's like you just cannot, even if they were the best person, you cannot hire them, then check that first. If I'm hiring a pilot and they've got to have this, license, or they can't operate the machinery, it's like it might take 3 years or longer for me to train them. So I want to just quickly check that off first. But unless there's some legally required qualifications, it's like we just check performance first. Then the next thing we also check is personality. We want to check that these two are in the right area. And then if this fits, we check motivation. And then we look more into doing technical checks of knowledge. Because, Becky, have you ever experienced hiring someone who had great experience, lots of knowledge, had the right credentials, but they just maybe caused you more headache, or maybe they just didn't add the value maybe you thought they would add, or they surprised you in a not so good way. Have you ever had that?
Absolutely. Yes, and I think that's probably quite a common thing as well. And I find a lot of times people that come with a lot of experience as within a dental practice, the owners are often very willing to fork out a very high remuneration package for this person coming on board, and we have high expectations for them. But it becomes a really disappointing or sore point when they don't live up to those expectations.
Yeah, I fully understand. Yeah, and look, this is the one thing that is important really to take note of, is that this concept applies to whether you're hiring a dentist or a dental assistant or a junior receptionist or a CEO or a cleaner or an operations manager. It's not industry related. It applies to every role, every industry. You always want to hire people who are going to add more value than take value away. It's as simple as that. We just communicate that concept. And we have seen people who've got so much knowledge, so much experience, have all the qualifications, but they were still not the right person for that job, or they created more problems in that job, or they just didn't add value. So we know that just because someone has a lot of experience, a lot of qualifications, it doesn't mean they're the right person.
Yeah.
So it's really, really important to check that. So the reason we check performance first is because if someone has the right performance, right personality, right motivation, some bits that may be missing on knowledge and experience are more trainable in certain jobs. But if someone's got all the qualification and education, but they don't have the right attitude, they don't have the right personality, they don't work well with others, and they are not good at getting things done and adding value, it's like you could have a bit of a nightmare on your hands, and someone who's just not willing to do what you need in that role.
Yeah, absolutely. So I guess, for the audience here, as like I've obviously been working with you guys, and the way Performia tends to sort of assess or evaluate performance is always with a pre-interview questionnaire. For those who are not, working with Performia, what sort of key questions do you think is pivotal should we be asking candidates when we're doing, for example, the telephone screening process? And I know, like the pre-interview questionnaires, they're meant to sort of allow us to screen those, people a lot faster. Like you said, at the moment there's tons and tons of, applicants coming through. We don't have time to sort through, 80 applications, for example, and screen all of them. But say if we don't have the tools like what Performia does, what's a question, or what are some of the questions or things we should be looking out for in order to assess productivity for someone that you're just telephone screening over the phone?
Yeah, sure. So, look, that's right. So what you want to basically check, obviously it depends on the job. And the thing you want to basically check is get some insight to how this person has actually added value in the past roles and companies. If they start getting sensitive around this point when you ask the questions, it's not a good sign. So I would ask things like, tell me a bit about, this isn't the standard way that we ask the question because it takes a bit of practice, but basically the concept is find out like what results the person has achieved in the past. What have they actually produced that they were paid for? What was the quality and the outcome of what they did? You don't want to just focus on what they did. You want to look at the result, the outcome of those actions. So, but for example, I'll give you a non-industry related example. But for example, if I'm a receptionist, actually that might apply to the industry, but not everyone is a receptionist. So if I'm a receptionist and I'm at reception all day long taking calls, do you pay me to take phone calls, or do you pay me to make sure every call is correctly routed to the right person, really cheerfully, swiftly, and effectively?
Yeah.
You probably...
Well, I guess in the dental industry, it would correlate with I would pay someone to make to take phone calls to ensure that the patient books in for an appointment, for example.
Exactly. And see, that's the result. It's like you're not paying them to take phone call, because then What if they take the phone call and frustrate the customer? It's not really something that's valuable. So you want to also find out in that job that they had, how busy was it? What did they actually get done in that particular time frame? How did they compare with other people as well? And what about, did they make a difference that added value? And always find out who can verify the output as well. So look, when you get a lot of applicants, it can be quite challenging, because then if you don't have a proper system, the go-to action tends to be, let's look at resume and get rid of the unlucky ones and look at the ones that have the right experience and the right knowledge. So it can become really tough, because also then what happens is you might screen out some of the best people. So that's why we have the system that we have, because we screen out people who could be disruptive. But what we do, which is very unique, which you can also do verbally, it just takes longer, is you can also screen in people that might traditionally be screened out, who might not look so good, might not present so well, but they're actually those hidden gems. They're those performers and those fantastic people.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, look, you want to just find out a bit more about what they actually did that added value in the past, bit about their achievements. And like I said, look, doesn't matter if someone's 19 years old or 40 years old. I've seen really productive 19-year-olds and really unproductive 19-year-olds that could, talk about their, how they added value. And you're also not looking at can this person sell themselves, or how's their written English at this point, for example, if they're writing things. It's like you're just looking for indications of did they know why they were there, what was the outcome they needed to achieve, and were they actually measuring it in some form, and just find out a bit more about their results and contributions. How did they contribute positively in that environment? So yeah, that's what I would be finding it. And in the same way, like if you're hiring a dentist, for example, what do you hire a dentist to achieve for you in your practice? So then, if they've been a dentist in the past, look for those results in their past. Ask them the questions to find out, okay, how many patients did you see in a day? Because that'll give you an insight to how busy they might have been. Okay, and then you want to probably find out, did they keep returning, or did they want to change dentists after a time, or how loyal was the clientele? You want to find out about the quality and the care, and then of course you want to verify that in reference checks. Because I can tell you all I want in an interview, but until actually verified, you have no idea if what I'm telling you is true or not.
So this is a point that I really wanted to touch on as well, what you're mentioning with the verification, because I was going to actually go on to talk about reference checking, and that was actually a question that I really wanted to ask you. I find that in the dental industry, sort of half and half. There are some dentists that are very vigilant about reference checking, and then I'm guessing that's part of the verification of what you're talking about, isn't it? And then there's also dentists who either don't do it at all because they're in a hurry to sort of get the hire happening, or they don't do it at all because the candidate actually tells them, you must not let my boss know that I'm leaving, for example, especially if their practices in the same town or nearby regions, and they'll say, I will only let my boss know that I'm leaving when I know for sure that I have a position. So I guess what I want to find out from you is, well, one, if that was the case, for example, where the candidate's saying this, is there any way around it? Like, what do you normally say to the candidate so that you can actually end up getting someone to verify their performance? And then second of all, I probably jumped the gun there, but what is the exact purpose of a reference check? What sort of questions should we be asking in the reference check?
Yeah, look, reference checks are like non-negotiable for us.
Yeah,
like we can't do reference checks. We won't hire someone. It's like, and this is a policy for us.
No matter how good they look, no matter how good they are.
It's the better they look, the more you should check references, But it's because then it's like people can be more attracted by a resume or experience and how everything sounds. But look, in simple terms, unless you do reference checks, you don't know if anything you've seen or heard or been told is true. It's as simple as that, right? So the reference check is actually what puts the quality seal on the hiring. Now, we've been on the reference check side where we've given a reference check, and of course we do reference check for our clients, and we also teach our clients on doing their own reference checks. So, when we've been on the the giving end of giving a reference check on an employee in the past, etc., the reference check's been really light. It's like it's just asking very basic questions, and if you try and give constructive feedback or might be slightly negative, it's like usually the recruiters tried not to hear it, and because they don't want that kind of news because then it impacts their fees, etc. But you know what? It's like spend the time doing the reference check now because it could save you quite a lot of money later on. And we have horror stories from reference checks and the things we've uncovered. Like I'm talking like from a simple, probably the most innocent was a candidate faking his own reference, and we found out, and that was the most innocent, to be honest. Right through to fraudulent cases where we found out through a lot of proper checking that candidates and their referees were actually moving company to company and giving each other as reference and basically taking money and commissions from the company, and then the deal would fall through, but then they would have already moved on by then. So then, it was just horrible, right? And through to candidates who set up Skype numbers as fake reference numbers, because you can do that, and through to like LinkedIn, setting up these fake LinkedIn connections and profiles that if you just check LinkedIn, you think, yeah, it's legitimate, but it's not. So we've become very particular at this, and we've got a process we go through. So if you're not currently doing reference checks, someone is not, please do them. They are so crucial. And so do you want me to answer the question around the local thing? You said if someone's like...
Yeah, so if the candidate comes along and just says, I don't feel comfortable with you doing any reference checking at this point in time because I don't want my current employer to know that I'm leaving. Yeah.
Yeah, so look, we do get that. Candidates do say that time to time, and you need to understand the reason why, because sometimes it could be a red flag. But sometimes it could be a legitimate reason. So, but this is typically what we do. If a candidate is currently working at that current employment, what we do is we check 2 to 3 jobs back before that company. We check the references there. And then when you get to and then it's all been good, all been positive, what we actually do is we suggest making an employment contract for the candidate and writing in there a line that says this letter of employment offer is subject to a positive reference check from your current employer. And you put that in because now you've given the candidate the stability of that contract, that, hey, it's a real job, it's there, it's for you, here you go. But we still got to contact that referee. And so use them the stability, but you still get your job done because, look, at the end of the day, you also need the candidate to do the right thing by the employer and leave them in a good state. If they don't, it actually says something about the quality of the person because do you want them to do that same thing to you, when they leave? So you want them to leave the company in a good position, and you can actually say to them, look, it's up to you to make sure you leave the company in a good state so they give you a good reference. Now, on this point, some candidates have told us that, look, they might get emotional, or they might not give me a good reference, or they might only say bad things about me, or they might not take your call. So if we get all those answers, what we normally say is, look, let us call them. If they don't want to if they refuse, we'll want to understand why, but at least you haven't stopped us. That's the first thing. The second thing is, if you have checked production first and you've got those bit of results and factual information, because the thing about our interview style as well is that you get facts and you're making decisions of facts. So then if I'm with the referee, I might say, oh, Becky, James said that he did this and got this award, and he was #1 in the dental association and blah, blah, blah. It's true. And then you might say to me, oh, I didn't like him. He was not good to work with. Okay, I got that. But did he achieve these things? Yeah. Okay, cool. So at least it's I've verified production. Yeah. Now I can separate what is emotional feedback and reference versus factual feedback. And then you can dig into, okay, well, look, why didn't you like him? Oh, he was so good and I hated that he left after 6 months. And you go, okay, now I'm understanding where that's coming from, you know? So in a reference check, it's really important to ask the uncomfortable questions because it could save you a lot of money. So be willing to ask them. Don't hold back through to the point where, you know, we're talking to somebody and we go, oh, you know, would you rehire him? Yeah, I would. You know, I would say at that point, hey, I noticed you hesitated there. Why was that?
Oh, wow.
You know, so you've got to pick
Not
up
what
on
you're saying, it's how you're saying it too, that you want to know. You want to find out why.
It's those, that's right. It's just like communication lag. It's a big one, you know? Or like sometimes, actually, this is a tip. Sometimes when you ask, would you rehire them? They'll dodge that question because a lot of the time employers want to do the right thing and they don't want to be mean. So they'll say, oh, look, we're not hiring anymore, or we actually are not hiring in that role again. So when they say that, don't go, oh, okay, no problem. Stay on the question and say, well, look, in a hypothetical situation, if you had that opportunity, would you rehire them? Maybe not. You know, you go, okay, tell me why, you know. Or you can say, is there any role you wouldn't hire them for, you would hire them for, or why? So you want to ask, this is a really important question, why? You want to ask it in your interviews, you want to ask it in the references. And but yeah, so on the topic of that candidate, that's what we would say, put that line in the employment contract. And if the candidate is still not happy, it's not a good sign. So it means you probably haven't been given the real reason. So you want to dig at it a bit more and understand it, because it's a risk to hire without doing the check, you know. Especially if the clinic is like, the practice is near you, it's like you want to be on, I think you want to have a good relationship and really know what's going on, because also, you know, you want that person to be proud where they're working and let everyone know, hey, I'm working at this clinic now, and you know, not be in a hidden thing where they're not telling anyone where they are as well, because that's not the best to start any employment on, you know.
Yes.
So that answers the question. Like you like, let me know if it doesn't fully cover it, because I can.
Yeah, no, it's good. It's really good. Yeah, I think you've really hit the nail on the head there when you said that, you know, when you're doing the reference checking, because everyone's obviously got biases. So the actual, you know, the person that you're reference checking off, that person would have their own bias as well. So being able to separate that emotion from the facts is so important, isn't it?
Yeah, 100%, 100%. And look, sometimes, to be honest, we've actually found that the referee was a problem, not the candidate. Right? And it's like very few times this will happen, because usually referees actually want to hold back from giving you the real anything negative. They actually want to either won't say it, or they just want to hold back. But sometimes they have gone down that path and we've picked up that they're not being honest and truthful. So it's like we gave the okay on the candidate because we could see it's the referee. Well, we can only do that because we have the facts, and then we can go to other referees and cross-check it and verify it. The other thing on references is that if a company refuses to give you a reference, it's also not a good sign. Sometimes, you know, sometimes companies will tell you, oh, it's our company policy, we don't give references.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Right? But it's not always true, right? They're just doing that also to get out of giving you a reference, because it's going to be a bad one. So in that situation, one thing we actually say to the company, say, hey, look, I'm going to have to put this down as a negative reference on the person. If you don't give a reference, no reference is also a negative reference. So if you want to help them, if they did good for you, they added value and you like them and you want to help them, just give me some feedback. And normally at this point, the managers that do want to help them because the candidate was good, they'll give us something. You know, because it's like we've put it in their core, made them feel a little bad, maybe, you know, that, hey, if you don't, and but they still pardon?
To give them a fair go, basically.
That's right. But, yeah, that's right. And then and normally at that point they'll either tell us or they still won't, and then we will put it down as a negative reference. Because can you imagine if one of your staff, you know, left and they were amazing, and even if it was company policy, you probably would be like, look, can't tell you much, but fantastic hire and will never disappoint you. I'm so sorry I lost it. You know what I mean? It's like you say something.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's really that's actually quite interesting. I've never come across anyone that said that they can't give a reference, but I'm sure there will always be a once-off where you'll encounter it.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, so moving on to something which I think is also a really interesting topic, which is regarding retention of staff, because we're all very big on, especially in dental industry. I'm sure all industries are a little bit like that, but in the dental industry, people come in and especially a really well-run sort of practice, they will have, full inductions, training, everything, absolutely everything, the works. And it takes a long time to get a team member, a new team member, fully integrated into the team. So, and it takes a lot of manpower as well. And obviously it's a business expense. So we all want to keep and retain staff for, as long as possible. Now, I know for a fact that, say our parents' generation or even our grandparents' generation, they would go in, work for the one job, doesn't matter whether they like it or not, they'll work there until the day they retire. And that's just how it used to be. But these days, they say that, I think they say for millennials, they say on average they change jobs, I think every 5 years on average or something like that. I just spun that off my head. But I think it's something along those lines, 5 to 7 years or something, sometimes even less. I think some people even say that if you can get 3 years out of someone, you're laughing already. So how do we determine whether or not, say, for example, you have really good candidates, you've got 2 really good candidates, they're both really, really good, but then you're thinking, okay, which one's going to get me the best return on, the best ROI? How do you determine who is going to potentially stay on for longer?
Yeah, look, it's 2 different questions, right? So if you're looking at ROI, that's return on investment in a given time frame. So, someone might come in, stay 6 months, and it's like they produce so much value, more than someone that stays 3 years.
Okay, yeah.
So like then you might decide, it's like they just come in and solve this problem or produce this much. Like imagine you hire a salesperson and you want him to sell $1 million a year, but he's the kind of guy that sells $3 million in 6 months.
Wow.
It's like then you might be okay to just have that person, even if they just stay 6 months and pull this off. So the first thing is, I think, looking at what result you want to achieve in a given time frame. But for some roles, like let's say I'm hiring a trainee, you might be investing 2 years in just getting them trained up to get to a level, which then means, hey, look, they've got to stay probably at least 5 years so I can get my investment back. So, but look, if the person's a bit proven, meaning like they've had some jobs in the past, then looking at their employment patterns in the past will give you some prediction around sort of what they're used to in the past. But also like this is where personality comes into it. So it can be a bit hard to just decide off resume, and that's why we do our evaluations, because you can have people who really love stability, love routine, and they just want to do the same thing day in, day out, and they'll be so happy. Other people, they get bored really easily and they want to challenge, they love new things. So like even if you look at me, I've been with the same company for over 12 years, right? But I've probably not been in the same role for more than a couple of years, because I've just like moved up like this. And because of the change, there's been lots of change, lots of new things, lots of challenge. And that's my person. I love challenge. I love new things. Some people don't like that. So this is where I think it's really helpful to look at the employment pattern, because that's really easy. You can look at the resume and look at, okay, have they been on average? Because some people, you start to see a bit of a pattern, it's like an average of 1.5 years they've stayed. And other people have got 2 jobs in their lifetime. So I'd look at that. The next thing I would do is, it's a little bit hard to go which candidate would you pick without having more data, but I would first look at those employment patterns, and then if you can do a personality evaluation to give you that insight to, are they more routine oriented or more change and challenge and love new things oriented. And then but also once you decide who to put on, you should always have a verbal handshake agreement with that person around how long they'll stay in the job. Okay. And this is particularly important when some people are a bit more, some people can be really sensitive, and then as soon as problems hit, they're more willing to give up and let go at that point and go, all right, that's it, can't take it anymore, I'm out of here, they're more willing to give up. Yeah, all right, no problem. Not dealing with this. So one, of course, if you've done the personality evaluation, you can see that right away and you know you should do it. But if you don't have that, then maybe just implement this blanket for everybody, you know.
Yeah.
Have an agreement that, and look, this is not going to hold up in court, but it's an agreement between you guys. You're giving your word to each other. I would just shake their hand and go, look, I want to have an agreement with you that if you're doing well in the role and, you know, we're helping you and all that, you'll stay at least 4 years because we're putting a lot of time and investment and training into you. We want to see you at least in that time. And then shake hands on it, but also see how they react. Because then they might go, oh, look, next year I was planning on actually going on a holiday and doing a tour around the world for 5 years. then this stuff starts to come out, right? But shake their hand because it puts some commitment there, right? And if they're an ethical person, if that situation comes up where they go, all right, that's it, I'm about to give up, they'll remember that promise they made, that handshake they gave. And there's a kind of person that honors their word, they'll nearly go back, all right, let me give it another crack, you know, let me try a little bit more, you know. So I just suggest adding that step in. And then
by the way, you do realize that's really bad advice you've just given us during COVID-19 time because we're not meant to be shaking hands. I'm just joking.
Wear gloves.
Pardon?
You can always wear gloves.
Wear gloves, and then now we're ready.
I was assuming you're in a dental industry, so you're always wearing gloves.
That's true. That's true. We have plenty of gloves. Yeah,
that's true. Yeah, that's right. So it's a concept. So I'd really recommend it. And but yeah, good point.
No.
I always forget.
I get completely what you mean. It's like that gentleman's agreement, and now that you've done it, you know, you've just got to honor it. Yeah,
that's right. And that's right. And also, but if they don't, if that doesn't work, because like I said, it's not going to hold up in court. It's like an agreement between you guys. But also, if that doesn't hold up, then it's like you could never really trust that person because it's like if they can't even honor their word, it's like, well, how valuable is that word at the end of the day? You know, so some people will really hold their to their word. You know, it's like they don't want to get a bad name.
That's true.
And then also onboarding is really, really important. It's really important to have good onboarding in place and good reviews in place and recognize your staff, tell them what's working well, what they're doing well, because these are all the things that create retention. You know, you can't just expect to hire someone and plug them in the company and hope they'll stay for 10 years. You've got to have the right framework and structure around them, the right support. Give acknowledgements, notice your good staff, and make sure that problem people are not taking up all the attention. Make sure you give positive acknowledgement to the people who are creating the most value. They all help retention.
That's actually a really good reminder as well, isn't it? Because sometimes we can really get super caught up with just, you know, it just preoccupies you when there's someone that's playing up at, you know, in the business. That's all your mind is on, but then you end up neglecting all the good ones.
Yeah, that's right. And it's like it's a law of attraction, you know. It's like what you will get more of what you put your attention on. So if you want more good things happening in the business too, put more attention on your good stuff, because also the ones that are maybe dragging the chain a bit, they'll look at that attention and go, oh, I want a bit of that kind of positive attention. Maybe I'll improve my performance a bit. You know, it won't happen exactly in the language, but you know, it does happen.
Yes. No, that's great. All right. So what's the number one thing now then for any of the people in the audience, if they are thinking if they're thinking, look, I'm actually not ready to be hiring. It sounds like there might be good candidates out there, but what should they really be doing right now if, you know, like, you know, they're not looking to hire, but they don't want to miss out on all the good stuff either?
Yeah, sure. Look, I think case by case is a bit different. Like even though it's the same industry, company varies, company to company, the situation varies. So I think it's worth just understanding the situation a bit more. But they should have a plan in place around how they will attract the right people, hire the right people, have that plan in place. But also minimally, they can start for some roles. If there's some roles where you normally don't get much applicants for or few qualified people apply, I would say start the hiring strategy for that now and start advertising in some form, and even put like expression of interest in the job title, so you're not being false about the opportunity. But then when the time comes, you can hire. But the other thing is, like, are we saying not going to hire in the next 12 months or 2 months? Because an average hiring can take a few months. So if you think you are going to hire in, what are we, June, like August, it's like now is probably the time to actually start advertising if you want to get a good person.
That's good advice, actually. Yes. Yeah, absolutely. All right. Well, I think that's pretty much, all the time we've got for today, Negar. What good for people to get in touch with you or connect with if they want to find out more?
Sorry, you cut off a little bit there. Did you say how to?
Oh, sorry. Yeah, so I was saying that's all the time that we've got for now, but I'm just wondering, like, it's obviously been a great conversation, and I'm just wondering, how can people get in touch with you if they want to find out more?
Yeah, sure. Look, you can message us on our Facebook page, Performia Australia. Send us an email, info@performia.com.au, or give us a call on the office phone, 1-800-603-023. And but I'm sure you can put the details in there later as well. And look, it's always best that we start off with the initial phone call or meeting or Zoom, just to understand the situation a bit better, because then we can provide the right idea or solution or recommendation from there, because everyone's different.
Yeah, absolutely. Excellent. This has been great. It's been invaluable. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for having me. It's been lovely.
Thank you.